Have you ever felt like you're just kind of like wandering through this fog, bumping into things, and you know that like bigger picture is just not there?
It's like a really complicated instruction manual,
Right.
but it's in a language you only half understand.
Exactly. And it's easy to feel like that's like a personal feeling, you know?
Right.
Like you're not getting it. But what if that murky feeling, like things being a bit disconnected, is actually like fundamental to the whole journey itself?
Yeah. And that feeling you're describing is the perfect place to start for what we're diving into today,
Ooh, fun.
which is the concept of the veil, as described in the law of one material.
Ooh, the veil. Yes.
So think about it not as a cosmic error, but as a deliberate kind of like partitioning, like
Okay.
a veil being drawn between your conscious mind that you use every day
Right.
and the vast wisdom that's in your unconscious mind.
Yeah, that we often don't tap into.
Right.
So this idea of the veil, it's not just some like philosophical musing.
No, no.
Right, this comes from the law of one, which presents itself as communications from a social memory complex called raw.
Right.
So this is like a key understanding from their perspective of reality and
It-
where we fit into it all.
Absolutely.
Like getting the insider's perspective on why the game of life feels the way it does.
Exactly.
I like that.
And our real focus today is to understand the why and the how of the veil.
Okay, I'm ready.
Why is it there? What does it do to us? And really, how can we use this understanding to illuminate our own journey of self-discovery?
That's the juicy stuff.
That is the juicy stuff.
Okay.
And as Ra put it, the veiling process is that which results in the discovery of the self by the self.
I love that.
It's a beautiful quote.
Yeah, it is.
It really is.
Okay, so our mission, should we choose to accept it,
I think we should.
is to really unpack this whole idea of the veil, its purpose, its impact on our minds, especially this idea of a shadow self and how things like dreams fit into all of this, this bizarre mental movies we all experience every night.
Right.
And then also this idea of catalyst.
This.
We'll explore the role of faith when you can't see the path ahead and the significance of the choices we make in this veiled state.
Absolutely.
How our relationships act like mirrors reflecting back to us,
Yes.
and ultimately how all of this is geared towards that discovery of the self by the self.
A lot.
That's a lot to unpack,
It is.
but it sounds really exciting.
It is.
Okay,
Let's start with that big why question.
Okay.
Why the veil in the first place? Was this a cosmic oops?
Right, like did someone forget to plug something in?
Right, exactly.
Yeah.
According to Ra, no, it was very intentional.
Really?
It was introduced by the Logos,
Okay.
that universal intelligence that kind of shapes our reality.
Okay.
So instead of thinking about it as an obstacle, the veil is really like a tool.
Okay.
And Ra says it beautifully, a tool of the Logos to enhance the efficiency of the experience of the Creator by the Creator.
Okay, hold on. Efficiency.
Mhm.
That's an interesting word choice.
Right.
Because when I'm like fumbling for words or like trying to remember the name of someone I just met, efficiency isn't the first word that comes to mind.
Exactly.
You know what I mean?
I know exactly what you mean.
So help me understand this. What was less efficient before we had the veil? What was third density life like without this like built-in forgetfulness?
Yeah. Well, before the veil, Ra describes third density as less dynamic
Okay.
and beings as relatively unified and unself-conscious.
Okay, so more unified.
Right, because there was this constant direct awareness of their connection to the one infinite creator.
Right.
So there wasn't a strong sense of individual self.
Okay.
So because of that, there was less of an urge to explore, to differentiate, to move towards one polarity or another.
I see.
It's kind of like everyone knowing the answers to the test beforehand.
Right.
There's less opportunity for genuine learning and growth because the discovery isn't really there.
Right, you just know it already.
Right, exactly.
So it was almost too harmonious in a way. Too vanilla, like you're saying, if everyone agrees on everything, it's hard to have a meaningful debate.
Exactly.
Right.
So the veil, what it does is it creates this illusion of separation.
Okay.
We forget our shared origin.
Right.
We perceive others as separate individuals.
Right.
And sometimes even as threats.
Yeah.
And then we feel this need to seek out truth.
Yeah.
In what often feels like a very confusing and mysterious world.
That sounds familiar.
Right. But this illusion, as disorienting as it can be,
Yeah.
serves a very specific purpose.
Okay. I'm intrigued. I gotta know.
Yeah. Well, earlier you mentioned that Ra talks about faith.
Yeah, as the great healer and activator of the spirit.
Exactly. So how does this forgetting
Right.
lead to something as powerful as faith?
Right.
Because when we lack that direct, concrete knowledge,
Okay.
when our origins and our ultimate destination are shrouded in mystery,
Okay.
We have to cultivate this deep inner trust in the unseen.
You have to take that leap of faith.
Exactly. You have to make that leap of knowing.
Right.
A conviction that goes beyond just empirical evidence.
Right.
Similarly, the choices that we make become even more significant.
Okay.
Because when you're choosing a path and you don't know all the consequences,
Right.
you don't have this cosmic roadmap of right and wrong,
Yeah.
that choice really carries weight.
Yeah, it feels more real in a way.
It does.
Yeah.
And it contributes so much more to your growth.
I see.
And then there's catalyst.
Right, those experiences that spark growth.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And the veil intensifies the catalyst.
Okay, how so?
Because the uncertainty and the feeling of separation, they create more friction, more opportunities for learning and evolving through how you respond to those challenges.
So it's like the logos, in a way, said, let's make this game of cosmic self-discovery a little more challenging, a little bit more engaging, and just hit the universal amnesia button.
I love that. I love how you put that. That's a great way of putting it.
Cool.
So the intention was to foster a deeper self-awareness, one that comes not from inherent knowledge,
Right.
but from the experience of separation
Okay.
and the subsequent journey of seeking and remembering.
It's like that saying, you don't know what you've got till it's gone.
Exactly.
And so by creating the sense of loss, this forgetting,
Right.
it almost forces us to seek out what we've lost. And in that seeking, we gain a much richer understanding of it.
Absolutely.
It's like trying to appreciate a stunning view.
Right.
You know, when you've hiked this challenging trail to get to the top of the mountain, that effort enhances the reward.
Exactly.
Yeah.
This post-veiling third density is a real training ground in paradox.
Okay.
We stumble through this darkness of unknowing,
Right.
but it's that very stumbling that strengthens our inner knowing,
Okay.
cultivates our will, and empowers the choices that we make.
I see.
And as Rob puts it, however, the choice is, as you put it, the meat of the matter in third density.
Yeah, choice becomes so central.
And it does.
Okay, so the veil sets this grand forgetting in motion, but what does that actually do to our inner world, to our minds?
Right.
Because, I mean, going from this all-knowing state to often feeling totally clueless seems like a pretty huge shift.
Yeah, it's a profound shift.
Yeah.
And Ray explains that the veil made the mind complex, far more mystery-filled, and therefore much more able to be polarized.
Okay.
So before the veil, the mind was more unified,
Okay.
more transparent in its connection to the whole.
Right.
But this veiling process, it created a division, this separation into what we call the conscious mind and the unconscious mind.
So conscious mind, that's like our everyday logical awareness.
Exactly. And then the unconscious mind holding these deeper currents of intuition, emotions, fears, desires, all those aspects that are harder to access with our everyday awareness.
Right.
Yeah.
So it's like going from this like single clear stream to this more complex network of waterways, some that are visible, some that are hidden beneath the surface.
Exactly.
And that internal complexity, that actually fuels polarization.
Exactly. Because with this division comes what Ra calls the great confusion.
That great confusion. Okay.
And we no longer have that clear, unwavering understanding of our connection to the Creator and to all beings.
Right. Right.
And this confusion, while it can feel really unsettling and can lead to that sense of isolation,
Absolutely.
it's actually fertile ground for making meaningful choices and for experiencing the consequences of those choices.
I see.
Which is really what the polarization process is all about.
Okay. Yeah.
Strengthening those leanings towards service to others or service to self.
Right. And from this confusion, this veil-induced amnesia, arises the concept of the shadow self, right?
Yes.
That sounds kind of dark and ominous.
Yeah. It carries a certain weight to it, doesn't it?
It does. Yeah.
What is it exactly?
Yeah.
Well, Rao describes how the veil leads to this kind of internal repression because it was no longer apparent that the other self was the creator. We start to develop fear and judgment and separation towards others.
Right.
And so this leads to a shunting aside of compassion in favor of fear of the other self.
Okay.
And this results in what's described as a blockage of the green ray.
Okay.
The heart chakra,
Right.
our center of compassion and unconditional love.
Yeah.
And so the shadow self becomes this repository for all these disowned aspects of ourselves.
Okay.
The emotions, the desires, the fears that we try to repress, reject, or just refuse to acknowledge.
Because they don't fit with who we think we are.
Exactly. Often because they don't fit with our self-image or what society expects us to be.
So those quick flashes of anger we try to push down,
Right.
or those envious thoughts that we're ashamed of,
Yeah.
even the things that we see in other people that really trigger us.
Yes.
Those could all be glimpses of our shadow. It's
Exactly.
like the universe is showing us these parts of ourselves that we just want to sweep under the rug.
Right. It's like the universe is saying, hey, look at this.
Exactly.
Pay attention.
And as uncomfortable as it can be
Yes.
to confront those shadow elements,
Yeah.
there's so much potential for growth there.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
It's a powerful catalyst for growth.
Yeah.
By acknowledging and integrating these disowned pieces of ourselves,
Right.
we move toward greater wholeness.
Wholeness. Yeah.
And it's through facing our fears, our judgments, even our darker impulses,
Right.
that we actually have the chance to rediscover our inner light,
Yeah.
that inherent connection to the Creator that's been obscured by the veil.
Right.
It's like this inner alchemy,
Oh, I like that.
turning the lead of our unconscious repressions into the gold of self-awareness and acceptance.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
Okay, so the veil creates this internal labyrinth
Yeah.
of conscious and unconscious,
Mm-hmm.
and that very mystery compels us to make choices,
Yes.
even when we don't have a clear sense of what's right or wrong.
Exactly. And Ra emphasizes this
Yeah.
by saying the value of that which is veiled is that it shall allow the mind-body-spirit complex to make the initial choice of polarity with no knowledge of right or wrong.
Wow.
So this state of relative ignorance,
That's nice.
this not having all the answers given to us,
Right.
is actually the foundation of our free will.
Okay, I see that.
If we had this pre-programmed understanding of cosmic law,
Yeah.
we wouldn't be free.
Right, it would just be automatic.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So without that, we are free to navigate our experiences
Right.
and to make choices based on our current level of understanding and awareness.
Like choosing to react to a situation with anger and defensiveness, or pausing
Right.
and choosing to respond with compassion.
Exactly.
Choosing to hoard things out of fear of scarcity,
Right.
or choosing to share things from a place of abundance.
Exactly.
Like those everyday moments, those choices that we're making in the relative darkness of the veil that really define our direction,
Yes, they do.
our soul's direction.
They do.
And in this context of not knowing,
Yeah.
faith becomes absolutely essential.
Absolutely. And Rod talks about this, saying
Okay.
the faculty of faith or will needs to be understood, nourished, and developed, because this is the prime energy input of each incarnation.
Wow.
And faith in this sense
Yeah.
is not this passive belief in something unseen.
Right.
It's an active trust in the process.
Okay.
A willingness to move forward,
Yeah.
even when the path isn't fully lit up.
Even when you can't see where you're going.
Exactly. It's about having this inner knowing,
Okay.
despite all the fragmentation and confusion that comes from the veil.
I like that.
It's like saying, I'm going to act as if
Right.
we are all interconnected.
Yeah.
As if I can operate from this place of love and compassion, even though I don't consciously remember my divine nature.
Yeah.
And this becomes an incredibly potent force
Wow.
for our evolution.
Powerful stuff.
It is powerful.
Okay, so the veil is doing all this stuff, messing with our minds,
Right.
creating this inner duality. Yes.
And the potential for our shadow self.
Mm-hmm.
But there's also this underlying framework,
Yes.
this blueprint in a way for how our minds can evolve
Right.
within this veiled reality. Right?
Exactly.
Ra calls it the archetypal mind.
Yes.
So what is that exactly?
The archetypal mind is a really fascinating aspect of this veiled experience.
Okay.
Ra describes it as that mind which is peculiar to the logos of this planetary sphere.
Okay.
So think of it like an operating system
Okay.
for consciousness here on Earth.
Okay.
This symbolic framework is specifically designed for our evolutionary journey after the veil was introduced.
Got it.
And the ultimate purpose, Ross says, the purpose of the archetypes is the realization of the one.
Nice.
So these archetypes are like these fundamental patterns, these
Yeah.
universal symbols or energies that really resonate in our unconscious.
Okay.
And help to guide our growth and our understanding.
Like the hero's journey.
Yes.
Or the wise old sage.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And before the veil.
With that more unified and less differentiated mind.
Right.
There wasn't the same need for this kind of guidance.
Yeah.
But with the veiling process and
Yeah.
the deepening of the unconscious mind,
Yeah.
the logos had to reconfigure those archetypal patterns.
Okay.
And some new ones even emerged.
Okay, so what are some of the new archetypes that came about after the veil came down?
Well, Ray mentions the significator,
Okay.
and that represents the individual self,
Right.
now feeling separate and striving to reconnect to that wholeness.
Yeah.
There's also the matrix and the potentiator.
Okay.
And you can think of that as representing the interplay between the conscious mind
Right.
and the vast potential of the unconscious.
Okay.
And then the veil itself became an archetype,
Oh, wow.
symbolizing that barrier
Yeah.
between our conscious awareness and the deeper knowing.
Right.
But I think the most significant one is the choice.
The choice.
Yes.
As in the choice to serve oneself or to serve others.
Exactly.
Oh.
And Rez says it very clearly. The choice is the first archetype which is not available before the veiling process.
That's really interesting
Right.
that it's only after the veil comes down
Yeah.
that we even have that choice.
Honestly.
So it really highlights how central the veil is
Yes.
to the whole third density experience.
Absolutely.
And how much it offers us the opportunity to polarize
Exact.
through our choices.
It's all about choice.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So the veil doesn't just make us forget
Right.
where we came from. It
Mhm.
actually fundamentally alters the very structure of our minds.
Yeah.
It's like it gives us this framework to navigate this new reality
Right.
of separation and choice.
It does.
It's almost like our minds become this huge puzzle
Yeah.
with all these different pieces, and these archetypes are the symbolic key pieces
Exactly.
that we can use to kind of unlock greater understanding.
Yes.
Yeah.
That's beautiful. I love how you put that. And Ra says, the mind must be opened like a treasure chest. The opening is necessary for contact with intelligent infinity.
Ooh, chills.
And, all these archetypes,
Yeah.
like the lover, the warrior, the healer,
Yeah.
they embody these paradoxes.
Right.
Vulnerability and strength,
Right.
intellect and intuition,
Yeah.
the self and the other self.
Right.
And it's through grappling with these paradoxes,
Yeah.
through really understanding their language, that we actually forge wisdom and integration.
So paying attention to recurring themes, symbols, and patterns in our lives, in our dreams, in our interactions with other people,
Yes.
that's like learning to read the language of these archetypes.
Exactly.
Yeah. Good
It's
job.
not about finding one right answer.
No.
It's about experiencing transformation
Yes.
through engaging with these deeper patterns.
Exactly.
Yeah.
That's beautifully put.
Okay, so we've got the veil creating this inner mystery.
Right.
We've got the archetypal mind providing like a map to navigate it.
But how does this unconscious part of us that's hidden behind this veil, how does that actually communicate
Great.
to our conscious awareness?
Yeah.
And I'm thinking specifically about dreams.
Yes.
Those bizarre, elusive experiences we have every night.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, that's a key point
Yeah.
in this veiled third density.
Yeah.
Our dreams,
Yeah.
our relationships, even our struggles and challenges.
Right.
These all become veiled forms of communication.
Okay.
It's like these encrypted messages coming from the deepest part of ourselves,
Wow.
nudging us toward a greater wholeness.
So dreams aren't just like random neural firings
Yeah.
or leftover thoughts from the day.
No, they're not.
They actually have meaning,
They do.
even if it's not obvious
Yeah.
to our waking mind.
Exactly. And Rand says, each time that the mind-body-spirit complex sleeps, the mind-body-spirit complex subconscious moves into the dreaming, and in this state, walks in a bridge made between space-time and time-space.
Okay, so it's like a bridge
They
between those two realities.
Yes, it's this meeting point,
Okay.
transitional state, where our conscious mind actually becomes more receptive to impressions
Okay.
from deeper levels of consciousness.
So it's more permeable.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And the archetypes within us,
Yeah.
they express themselves through symbols
Okay.
in dreams. And our higher self can communicate through metaphor and feeling.
So that's why dreams are so bizarre.
Often, yeah.
Yeah.
It's because they're speaking in this symbolic language,
Right.
the language of the unconscious, which isn't bound by logic in the same way.
Right. It's not linear.
Exactly.
Yeah. Okay, cool.
Yeah.
So what about this word catalyst?
Catalyst, yes.
It sounds like any experience that has the potential to kind of shake us up,
Yeah,
good or bad.
exactly. And Ra actually defines catalyst as any experience that presents an opportunity for spiritual growth.
Okay.
The function of catalyst is to offer experience, Ra says.
Okay.
This experience may be loved and accepted, or it may be controlled. These are the two paths. So the veil actually intensifies catalyst.
Okay, so it makes it stronger.
It does, and it often manifests as significant emotional experiences, conflicts in our relationships.
Right. Those big moments.
Yeah, or unexpected challenges, and of course sometimes those moments of great joy and connection.
Sure.
But Ra emphasizes this catalyst, if used, offers an opportunity for the discovery of love.
Ooh, that's a good one.
It is, isn't it?
Yeah.
So even those difficult and painful experiences, if we approach them with awareness
Right.
and a willingness to learn,
Yeah.
can become profound catalysts
Wow.
for our evolution.
Okay, so it's almost like these dreams and the challenges we face
You're right.
are like breadcrumbs or clues that are left by our deeper self,
Exactly.
trying to lead us back to that wholeness.
Yes, and orchestrating all of this from behind the scenes
Right.
is our higher self.
With that broader understanding.
With that broader understanding, exactly. And Ra reminds us that the higher self is the self, which exists with full understanding of the accumulation of experiences of the entity. So your higher self is working from this much wider perspective,
Right.
orchestrating the catalyst in your life,
Okay.
sending those messages through dreams,
Okay.
and offering these gentle nudges through intuition.
So the veil doesn't cut off that connection completely.
It doesn't know.
It just makes it less obvious.
Less direct.
Right.
It makes us have to work for it.
Right. We have to seek it out.
Yes, exactly.
So with this foggy landscape created by the veil,
Yeah.
with these cryptic messages coming through
Right.
from our unconscious mind and our higher self, how do we even begin to make sense of it all?
Right.
It feels like sometimes I'm stumbling around in the dark, hoping I don't trip over something.
Exactly. And that's where faith becomes absolutely essential.
Okay.
Rand describes it as that quality which gives the entity control over the catalyst which it will receive. Faith may be seen, then, as the catalyst which illuminates a pathway into the intelligent infinity.
Wow. So faith is like this control over the catalyst that we receive. And it illuminates the path.
Yes.
Okay. So faith isn't about blindly believing something
No.
with no proof.
No.
It's more of a way of being in the world.
It is. And because the veil makes absolute certainty
Right.
about our origins, our purpose, the
Yeah.
nature of reality beyond this life,
Right.
it makes those things really hard to know for sure.
Yeah.
So faith becomes this necessary faculty.
Okay.
It's the stirring within that something is known, despite all evidence to the contrary, as
Yeah.
Rhea puts it.
So it's like an inner recognition of
It's-
truth
yeah.
that goes beyond the mind.
It does.
Yeah.
It's a sense of an underlying light even when we can't consciously remember it
I see.
because of the veil.
So it's not the destination,
Right.
but the compass that helps us to get there.
Exactly.
It's not about having all the answers,
Right.
but trusting in the process,
Yes.
even when the path ahead isn't clear.
Exactly. And Ra presents faith not as these rigid beliefs,
Okay.
but as this vibrational orientation.
Right.
This deep trust in our own unseen potential
Yeah.
and a willingness to move forward even when things are confusing.
I like that.
Yeah. And uncertain.
It's the light shining through the fog,
Exactly.
not the fog disappearing.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And this willingness to have faith in the unseen,
Right.
in something beyond our immediate senses,
Yeah.
is actually a key part of the design of this whole thing.
Really?
Yeah, Ray explains. The efficiency of the veiled mind in polarization is due to its willingness to use, test, and place faith in that which is not seen but suspected.
Wow. And so in those earlier experiments,
Right before the veil.
before the veil, they had this awareness of their connection to the creator,
Right.
but that knowing didn't necessarily lead to growth
I see.
because they didn't have to seek.
Yeah, it was just there.
It was just there.
Yeah.
But now with the veil,
Yeah.
we are challenged to choose to believe in the underlying unity,
Right.
even though everything looks separate.
Yeah, and that act of choosing
It's
becomes
such a-
really powerful. It becomes very powerful. It magnetizes our souls toward the energies of love and light.
And this isn't passive acceptance.
No.
This is an active choice.
Very active, yeah.
And Ra even says that it has an energetic power.
Yes. This faculty is most important, for it is the foundation of the harvestable entity.
Wow.
Faith strengthens our will to choose love and service.
So it's like our soul's inherent resonance with truth.
Yes.
Before we can even grasp it intellectually.
Exactly, before we can even prove it scientifically.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
So we've talked about the veil creating this separation,
Right.
this illusion of otherness.
Mm-hmm.
And within that illusion, we are constantly presented with choices.
Yes.
And Ra actually calls the choice
yeah,
a unique archetype
it is.
that's only available after the veil.
Exactly. The choice is the first archetype which is not available before the veiling process.
So why is this act of choosing so pivotal
Yes.
to our veiled existence?
Well, because before the veil,
yeah.
there wasn't that same level of confusion.
Yeah.
And therefore, There wasn't the potential for the same level of polarization.
I see.
So the veil creates this paradox
Okay.
where we have to choose a path,
Yeah.
service to self or service to others,
Right.
without knowing for certain which path is the right one.
Yeah.
And it's this uncertainty, this freedom to choose without complete knowledge that
Yeah.
makes the choice so incredibly powerful.
Okay, so it's almost like the veil sets the stage for this grand drama of
Yes.
decision making.
Yeah.
And within that drama, we encounter our shadow,
Yes.
those disowned aspects of ourselves. Expert speaker.